It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Hello there. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me. As always, Douglas Coleman. How are ya? We've got Ryan Brookhart and James Liddell here today. Ryan is the director and James Liddell is the writer, producer, and star of the new movie 2 Ways to Go West. At the time of the interviews, I had not seen the film yet, but I have seen it now, and I liked it. It was a night that I definitely could relate to. I think many of us back in our younger days, particularly after perhaps one too many sips of that old 80 proof truth serum, have had nights like that with our friends, and people start talking and can't stop and say things that maybe they've wanted to say, and it all comes out, and y'all end up at a diner at 4 a.m. Yep, had those nights, been there. Speaking of diner, if you watch at the end of the movie, when they all get to the diner, you might see somebody that you recognize. Take a look at the waitress. I certainly recognized her. You'll have to go to the credits. I'm not telling. Before we get to the interview, we've got our complete radio promotional playlist. This month we are featuring Winchester 7 and the Runners and their track, The St. Simon Killer, which was produced by the very famous Stuart Epps, who I know very well. If you enjoy our show, please take the time to follow us on social media. We're everywhere. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we are on YouTube. Please follow us and show your support. With that, here is Winchester 7 and the Runners and the St. Simon Killer. Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Ryan Brookhart. Hey, Ryan, how are you?
Hi, good afternoon, Doug. How are you?
Doing just fine. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming on the show. I regret to say that I have not had a chance to watch the movie. Normally, when we get guests coming in who are promoting a film and they are nice enough to send the screener, I make time to watch it before the interview so we can talk about it. Unfortunately, we've been busy setting up a video studio because the show we're going to be doing selective video interviews, and it's just been a little crazy. So I apologize for not having the chance to watch the film.
Totally fine.
So perhaps...
We're all so busy these days, I get it.
Yeah. So perhaps you can just kind of tell us a little about the film. And then there's no chance of a spoiler since I haven't seen it. I wouldn't slip and say something.
No, nobody turns into a robot or anything like that, so we're good there.
So why don't you just tell us a little about it?
Sure. Well, it's about three childhood friends that all come to Las Vegas, which is sort of a common trope in movies like this, and they're basically there to celebrate someone's bachelor party. It's going to be just a basic bachelor party. But the three guys haven't really seen each other a lot and over the years, and one of them has become a television star and has had a bout with substance abuse and is trying to recover from that. They basically start off as very friendly, low-key kinds of conversations, the three of them. And then things kind of devolve a little bit, and then they each sort of confront, essentially, issues of their own I should say, I'm fumbling this a little bit, but they each sort of confront each other on issues of betrayal, and they confront one of them on his substance abuse. And it's sort of an exploration of that sort of thing, but done hopefully in a way that's just a little fresher than I think you normally see with films of this nature, because it really does deal with addiction, but it also deals with, I think, a lot of the zeitgeist of our culture right now, which is a lack of real connection. A lot of superficial connectivity is going on, but when you get right down to it, I'm sure you've read a lot of studies, but more and more people, especially across all age groups, but in their 20s and 30s especially, feel more and more lonely, even though they're so present in quote unquote social media. And now, of course, we've got a terrible situation going on right now with, self-isolation. And I feel like that's a critical sort of conversation to have right now. It's like, what is real connection and how do we make it? And maybe how do we reestablish it? So hopefully those are some of the issues. And by the way, I haven't touched on any of the spoilers. There are a couple, but that gives you a general idea of the story.
Well, you're right about the social media generation. I'm a bit older than that, although I still use social media very heavily, but I didn't grow up with it. And it is a very ironic sense of connection because on the one hand, you're connected to anybody in the world that you want to be connected to instantly. On the other hand, people have lost the sense of real connection, real touch and feel people. And it's very strange. It's, I suppose there could be a lot of psychological studies done on that, but it is very unusual or very odd to me that on the one hand, the whole world is connected at our fingertips. And on the other hand, everybody feels more isolated now than they ever did.
It's so true. And I feel like one of the big issues, and it's something we do address in the story, is that it's not really conversations that are being had. It's more like a series of declarations. One person stakes their position, another person then adds to it, or maybe will reinforce it. But the sort of confirmation bias that is so prevalent in social media in general, not to mention the fact that, what we're getting is a very, very sort of two-dimensional, I don't mean that just literally, I mean that figuratively, two-dimensional idea of a person, between filters that people use on their faces to, political proclamations that they may not make if they actually were face-to-face with someone in real time, in real life. So I think and unfortunately, I have to say, Doug, I'm not of that generation either, but I have a lot of friends that are younger than me, and a lot of friends that are older than me, and some of them have, older than me, have really succumbed to this as well. And I see that happen, especially in this sort of political climate. And I won't get into specifics, but I think we'd agree on that too. So that's kind of, I will tell you this, I was working through some of those issues myself when this film came about. One of my very best friends is the star of it and wrote it. And I was going through some of the issues we're talking about, just in terms of friendships that had fallen away or become really fractured because of social media. This is before COVID-19 or anything. That was my personal sort of element into the story.
You mentioned that the film takes place in Vegas, and we are in Las Vegas. That's where you're talking to me.
Yes, you are.
The film that came to mind while you were speaking about it was the one with Nick Cage leaving Las Vegas. Is it comparable to that?
Well, I'll tell you what, it would say that they are adjacent to each other thematically. Does that sound really highfalutin? Say it that way.
Adjacent to each other. Well, okay. Yeah, I get that.
Sure. Yeah. They probably are in the same neighborhood. Nick Cage could probably go over and borrow ice from. They're in the same general strip, but no, I would say, that film. I really admire that film, and those performances are stunning. This is a little less bleak, and it ends in a slightly more ambiguous way, where you can see these characters making choices that hopefully live off the screen, because that was one of the key ideas. I think leaving Las Vegas, when it ends, you're like, well, okay, that's a very literal and metaphoric title. It makes perfect sense with that film. This film, from the title up to the end of the film, hopefully creates an idea that there are branching solutions to any problem. And sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're not so good, but you make those better with friends. Okay,
well, that's good. I also noticed somebody's name on the credits that I did recognize, Kathrine Narducci. And
yes,
for people that don't know who she is, she played Robert De Niro's wife in A Bronx Tale.
Right.
And which was a great
film.
And
then wonderful film. And then she turned around and did it with Joe Pesci.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That sounds terrible. Well, in The Irishman, she plays the wife of Joe Pesci in The Irishman.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's wonderful.
So how did she come to be on your film?
It was just this really fascinating ball of actors that all sort of interconnect. Paul Gennaro's friends with Kat, and she read the script and really liked it. Levy Tran, who's on MacGyver right now, she knew James, and this is the sort of thing that happens with independent cinema. You try to create this sort of conspiracy of artists to come together and do something with a lot of sweat equity and not a lot of money. So, it sort of steamrolled. Another person came along, and they all, have really impressive credentials. So it just sort of boosted the project. And Kat and I got along really, really well. I was like, geez, now is she baked into the film? I don't even know if she's going to be someone that wants to work with me. But no, she was so good. She brings an authentic self to the set.
I noticed on your bio as well that you did some work on Seabiscuit, which was another great film. What did you do on Seabiscuit?
Oh, that's artwork. I have done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of movie posters. Key art. Key art, for those who don't know, is the term for movie poster, or the art that you see on, DVD boxes or VHS. Does that even exist anymore?
VHS.
But yeah, I do. If you go to my IMDb, you'll see 2 director credits, this and a movie called Trace, and literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of movie posters, and not including any of the magazine stuff I used to do. So yeah, I'm still very, very active in that part of the world.
You know what? I didn't know that that's what key art stood for, was the movie posters. I actually thought it meant chroma key.
Or some people think it means just painting large keys, and then you go, well, I don't know. Maybe there's maybe there's a market for that.
I thought you were the green screen guy, the one that did the backgrounds. But okay, wow. So we don't know why it's called key art. Is there a reason?
Oh, key. Well, I mean, it's the central art. Let's call it that. These terms are so antiquated now that people say, "Where's the limelight?" Well, there's no such thing anymore, really. It's just it's a term that was used. But key would be, a source, central art. The sort of.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The centerpiece, yeah.
The premiere,
like Red Butler kissing Scarlett. I was going to say Scarlett Johansson. That wouldn't work. Scarlett O'Hara. That would be that iconic piece of key art. Or, Luke Skywalker raising the lightsaber, and very specific thing that's used over and over and over again. So I do a lot of that.
Okay. Well, we've already blew through our 12 minutes. Real quick, the movie is called Two Ways to Go West. My guest is Ryan Brookhart, who is the film's director. The film is out when?
Today, actually. I just went on to Amazon Prime and watched it in high def, so it's on there. There are a lot of platforms. I don't think it's live on iTunes quite yet, but it's sort of rolling out starting today.
Okay, super.
So check with Roku, check with Tubi, Amazon. It's out there.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. I'm sorry the interview was so short, but it's good and concise.
Well, Douglas, thanks for talking to me, and I hope you have a great day, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on The Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records, and it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, Stuart, Epps, EPPS, at talk, TALK, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you. Bye.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
Acclaimed author of Garden, Jane Yates brings you the first book in a new trilogy, Octopus Pirate, a story of a foundling who has unusual talents, such as the ability to communicate with octopuses. As a baby, he was washed up on an island off the Scottish mainland. An eccentric former nun who lives alone with cats brings him up. He joins a circus and narrowly escapes plots against him, flees to Cornwall, builds a replica pirate ship that's also an airship to travel back in time to fight real pirates. Get your copy today from Amazon, only 99 cents.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Hi, this is John Morgan, production supervisor for DJC Productions. And you're listening to The Douglas Coleman Show.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, James Liddell. Hey, James, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
As I explained to Ryan, I still haven't had a chance to see the movie. We have been flat out busy putting a video studio together, and
oh, that's great.
We've increased our podcast from once a week to twice a week, so it's just been very crazy. Nice. So I apologize.
That's
I have
exciting,
not.
Though.
Yeah, it's exciting. I apologize. I have not seen the film Two Ways to Go West, which is what you're promoting.
Oh, that's all right.
But one thing I found interesting, I was looking at your bio, and the couple of films that you've worked on recently, Two Ways to Go West, and then the other one was North of South, West of East. It's like, do all of the films that you're in have a compass bearing as the title, or was...
Yeah, it turns out that's my theme. That's what I'm drawn to.
Is that what it is? Were you? Do you want to be a navigator as a child or something?
Yeah, that's what it was. I gave up on my dreams of navigation and settled for writing and acting.
So, all right. Well, why don't you do this? Tell us just a little bit about yourself. Give us a quick background of you, and then tell us a little bit about Two Ways to Go West. I know Ryan told us a bit about it, but give us your version. So, because you were the writer after all. Right?
Yeah, so I wrote, produced, and acted in Two Ways to Go West. I'm from Michigan originally. I've been in LA for about 7 or 8 years now. So I came out here as a writer and an actor, and after many years of auditioning and doing the LA hustle, I kind of just got fed up and decided to start creating my own content. Which, like you mentioned, with the North of Southwest of East, I was actually a crew member on that film. So I spent many, many years in Detroit doing camera work, assistant camera work, editing, all below the line stuff. So I've kind of, tried to become a little bit of a jack of all trades, maybe in a negative way, but so I kind of had a little bit of the skill set that I needed to put something together, and I just went for it. So this was a few years ago now. The ball started rolling quickly. We started to get some interest as I was writing the script. Ryan was just a friend of mine at the time, so I had him read it for notes, and he invited me over to talk about it. And I think we've never actually talked about this, but I think we were both kind of feeling each other out. I was half pitching him to direct it, and he was half pitching himself to me to direct it, and it just kind of worked out. So a few years later now, the film just released last week, video on demand on Amazon Prime, Tubi, and all sorts of other streaming services.
I think it's a very exciting time for creators and artists because with technology, it's totally transformed the whole industry for filmmakers, for musicians, and authors to a point, although I think when you write a novel, it's still kind of the same story. It's just you can self-publish much easier now than you could before.
Yeah.
But with filmmaking and with music, I mean, it's totally been transformed. You can do everything at home. Cameras and things are much cheaper than they used to be.
Yeah.
Video editing software, Adobe Premiere, a lot of people use.
Mm-hmm.
And,
oh, yeah.
it's possible now for people to make films on their own. They don't have to go down on their knees in front of Universal, and,
Exactly.
and beg.
No, exactly. You're right.
Yeah.
And I think, the way that I look at that is it really, it forces you to have to actually be passionate about it. And, there were so many, even when I was younger, there were so many excuses of why not to do it, why not to do it, why not to do it. And for me, that always came down to, it was really just resistance. If I had a good enough excuse, I wouldn't do it because I was afraid. But eventually, the years go on and you start to look yourself in the mirror and those excuses aren't good enough. And now, you really don't have an excuse. I could hang up the phone now, turn my phone around, and start filming a movie in 4K.
Exactly.
And I think that what that means is if everybody is capable of making a movie, you or writing a book or whatever it may be, I think it means that you have to be doing it because you want to be doing it and not for success or fame and fortune or anything along those lines, because now everyone can make a movie, and the level of competition is going to be pretty unreal, I think.
Well, it's the old double-edged sword. The line is
exactly.
The good news is that everybody can make a film or make music. The bad news is that everybody can make a film or music.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
wade through that.
Overall, I think it's good. At least it gives everybody the opportunity.
Absolutely.
And I had a great conversation with a musician and music producer who said that now there's something like 9,000 artists on Spotify who are making a living just on streaming. Not just extra, but actually making a living. And when I think about when I was growing up, I doubt there were 9,000 artists that were signed to major labels making a living. I really do. And so that turned me around. I didn't know that.
Yeah. If you're doing it because you love it and you can squeak by on it, I think for me that's a win. If it spreads the wealth a little bit and now we have more creatives doing what they love and living, somewhat of a happy life and making a little less money apiece. Well, I don't know. I think that's a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. How many swimming pools can you swim in at one time anyways,
Exactly.
It's like you got a nice house. If you can afford to buy a nice house and a car that runs and you make film for a living, I think it's a win situation.
Yeah, and honestly, that's a big part of what Two Ways to Go West is about. It's that chase. It's like, what are you really after? Did you really pursue this because you're a passionate artist and you have something to say? Or did you have a wound that needed filling in the validation of the attention or the fame or the money, and you thought that was going to fill it? And at a certain point, no matter how successful you are, you kind of hit the end of the line on that chase. And you can only really go down from there. And that's a big theme in Two Ways to Go West, is that you can't really love anything until you are happy with yourself and love yourself.
Well, that's very true. So since you were the writer on that film, I always have to ask, how much of the story was true or about you, or parts of it were you, or was it just a composite of your own real life,
Well, actually, I probably get this question more than anything else, especially when I had first written it, and a lot of people were reading it and interested in investing and things like that. And I say yes, absolutely. I started out just wanting to write something, just wanting to do a project, and eventually, when you invest yourself into it, it does become deeply personal, and less so on a surface level. But I kind of call it magnification. So just taking any true feeling or event or circumstance from my life and trying to find a way to make it more cinematic and compelling in a cohesive way. So yeah, I think that writing for me, the author isn't one character or another. He's kind of all of them. And that's definitely true with this story. It was kind of like, one of the characters is who I want to be, one of the characters is who I'm afraid to be, and one of the characters is probably closer to who I am.
Well, that's good. So it's like three personalities that there are bits and pieces of all of them in you, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, all my friends and all the crazy people I've met along the way have probably crept in there a little bit.
You said you came from Detroit and went to L.A. to pursue acting. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
What was the first thing that sort of blew your mind when you came to L.A.?
Oh man,
where do you start?
It was kind of culture shock. I'd never been to a big city in my life, So I got here, and it was pouring rain when I got here. Everyone told me I didn't know if it was a good omen or a bad omen. And I'm sitting in traffic, and I'm driving down Sunset Boulevard, and there's all these billboards and lights, and it was crazy. And I kind of just hit the ground running and dived right in. So it was all a little bit overwhelming, but I think I was just so in the moment and going with the flow that it didn't really faze me or affect me. I had an objective and things that I wanted to accomplish, and I focused on that.
What was your first paid gig in L.A.?
Oh, man. When I first moved out here, I was very young. I played about 16 on camera, so I was auditioning a lot for Nickelodeon things and,
oh, okay. Yeah.
All the teenage stuff. I did a show called, I did a lot of the reenactment shows. So the murder mysteries and all of that kind of stuff where you're reenacting the kid in the crime scene or the boyfriend or whatever it may be. So I did quite a few of those.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's definitely fun.
Yeah.
But then you realize, you start to do the research and this is a real person and you're playing, a murderer or whatever it may be. And then it's like, okay, the stakes now feel much higher than the kind of cheesy thing it felt like we were doing.
So your film, Two Ways to Go West, it premiered on VOD on July 17th. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Just last week.
So how's it doing?
Oh, well, we haven't gotten any numbers or anything back from the distributor, which I'm sure we'll be hearing from them soon. But all of the response from friends and family has been great, which
well, that helps.
But we've had some really solid reviews, and very, very grateful for people's appreciation for indie film, because it's so easy to critique a low budget film. It is. It's like if somebody went out and made a house for $5,000, it's just an accomplishment that the thing is standing. Now if somebody wants to spend the night there, that's a huge win. So we've had some people say some really, really kind things, and I've had some people say some pretty nasty things. But I think, if big studios making movies for $100 million get bashed, then, it kind of just comes with the territory. Like you said earlier, that's why right now is a great opportunity for, smaller producers to kind of make a splash.
Oh,
this film was just a couple actors in a room talking. It was at the end of the day, it was written almost like a stage play, because that seemed like the most effective way to make a movie with very, very little money. You let the actors do the heavy lifting. Now, it's not always as cinematic as you would like it to be, but I think now with all the restrictions and COVID and everything that we're going through, we're going to see a lot of that kind of thing, because you can't have 100, 200, 500 people on set.
True.
You can have a handful.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We do have to wrap this up. Unfortunately, we've already blown through our time and then some here. My guest is James Liddell. The film is called Two Ways to Go West. Please check it out. It's available on VOD as of July 17th. Thank you very much, James, for coming on. It was nice chatting with you.
Thank you. I hope you get a chance to watch the film.
I will do my best. Best of luck with it. I hope it does well.
Thank you.